time people come up and say, hey, Bruce, are you really that good? I said, well, if I tell you I'm good, probably you will say I'm boasting. But if I tell you I'm no good, you know I'm lying.
You still think of yourself Chinese, or do you ever think of yourself as North American?
You know what I want to think of myself? As a human being. Because, I mean, I don't want to sound like, as Confucius say, but under the sky, under the heaven, man, there is but one family. It just so happened, man, that people are different. I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Like that, you see?
Oh, I see.
Don't you sometimes feel sad about breaking all these myths apart?
No, because I think it's some myths are deserve to be broken apart out of respect for the human intellect. That no, when you're writhing on the ground and froth is coming out of your mouth, you're having an epileptic seizure. You have not been invaded by the devil. We got this one figured out, okay? I mean, discovery moves on. So I don't mind the power of myth and magic, but take it to the next frontier and apply it there. Don't apply it in places where we've long passed what we already know what's going on. If you knew nothing about science and you read, say, the Bible, the Old Testament, which in Genesis is an account of nature. That's what that is. And I said to you, give me your description of the natural world based only on this. You would say the world was created in 6 days and that stars are just little points of light, much lesser than the sun. And in fact, they can fall out of the sky, right? Because that's what happens during the Revelation. One of the signs that the second coming is that the stars will fall out of the sky and land on earth. To even write that means you don't know what those things are. You have no concept of what the actual universe is. So everybody who tried to make proclamations about the physical universe based on Bible passages got the wrong answer. So what happened was, when science discovers things and you want to stay religious, or you want to continue to believe that the Bible is unerring, what you would do is, you would say, well, let me go back to the Bible and reinterpret it. Then you'd say things like, oh, they didn't really mean that literally, they meant that figuratively. So this whole sort of reinterpretation of how figurative the poetic passages of the Bible are came after science showed that this is not how things unfolded. And so the educated religious people are perfectly fine with that. It's the fundamentalists who want to say that the Bible is the literal truth of God, and want to see the Bible as a science textbook, who are knocking on the science doors of the schools, trying to put that content in the science. Enlightened religious people are not behaving that way. They're saying, yes, science is cool, we're good with that, and use the Bible to get your spiritual enlightenment and your emotional fulfillment.
It's a 6'8", and how did that fit
It's a 6'8" and a 4, so just 6. You want to hold the 4 now? Mm-hmm. So if he's holding the 4, we count that 1, 2, 3 to 6. We 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna tap out how that became a swing rhythm. Okay, I'm gonna show you how the evolution of that rhythm in America, it leaned more toward the 4. He's just laughing because I was making up stuff on it. Okay, it comes from now interesting. It's like an Irish jig. Okay, that's the American swing pattern, shuffle.
Yeah.
Marches.
We can't help it.
Well, I heard John.
Now, that 60th generation did create great change in this country, driven by the youth. And America has had several reform movements, the farmers' movement. There have been movements that are reform movements. That particular movement in the 60s was led by the youth. And the centerpiece of that movement was integration. The centerpiece of rock and roll, ironically, was integration. The Moondog Show was about Alan Freed. His shows he brought to was about integration. People had separated themselves and moved to the suburbs, didn't want to be by. Alan Freed, the disc jockey, was like, no, we're not going to play just white covers of these songs. We're going to play the black songs, and I'm going to put on shows that are integrated. He lost the TV show, American Bandstand, the equivalent of American Bandstand, because he wouldn't have a non-integrated band. So we see this strain running through our history. Now, to add to the confusion, we have segregation by generation. The older people need the younger people, and the younger people need the older people. So we have a joke sometimes at Jazz Lincoln Center. We say we got to follow our younger generation. And then we say we got to follow our older generation. Because we're intertwined, we're linked. You're a kid now, you're not gonna be a kid. You're gonna be old. That's what happens, and then you're not gonna be here. That's a fact of life. So when a lot of stake is put on you because you're young, you say, well, my generation. What's your generation? You're representing something, you're not necessarily your generation. 6 people come up with some technological innovation, and it's our generation did that? Most of us don't even know what that is. You know, so, and that's true of anything. Beethoven is the German people, but Beethoven's Beethoven, not the German people. He represents a thing in human beings that is timeless. It crosses all lines of tribalism. So I find it with younger people and with older people in this country, I see strict segregation. I just see younger people are just an exploitable market for us. And we started providing them with all of these things. Now we've gotten to the point to where we're selling them pornography. And at a certain point, you're selling pornography to your kids, 11, 12, 13 years old. How are they going to survive that? Then it becomes a belief in the generation gap. If you look at pictures of your kids at 19, 12, 13, they don't look like something from another planet. They're just young versions of old people.
We're only going to encounter them if they are intelligent enough either to come here, which is very difficult indeed, or to send radio transmissions to us, which is a lot easier, but still requires. Let's just define it as the quality that you need in order to send information across the universe. Now, you don't have to call that intelligence, but whatever it is, that's what it needs in order to get here, in order for us to apprehend it.
And I wonder, you know, surely you've walked past a worm that had just crawled out of the earth, and when you did so, you weren't saying to yourself, gee, I wonder what that worm is thinking. You just simply didn't care. You're so far beyond I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm imagining you simply really don't care what the worm is thinking. And the worm, conversely, has no clue that you consider yourself intelligent. You're just this thing that went by. So can you imagine a species that has such high intelligence that the prospect of communicating with us is simply of no interest to them?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
And they go by and their intelligence is on such a level that we can't even recognize it as intelligence.
Yes, and moreover, I think it would more or less have to be that much ahead of us if we were ever to meet them, because we're never going to get there.
Yeah, we sure as hell not getting there.
Great. So
see the NASA budget lately? It's not...
So anything that gets here has got to have a very, very highly developed technology, far more than we've...
That brings us to Stephen Hawking's concern about any civilization sufficiently advanced to visit us. What does that say about the consequence of that encounter?
Yeah.
And he's worried, of course, because he's taking his cue from the history of humans, with one has a more advanced technology than the other, and they visit. It almost is always bad for those with the lesser technology.
Whatever they can. But the one thing that has made a big comeback just recently is this business of speaking with the dead. Now, to my innocent mind, dead implies incapable of communicating. You might agree with me on that. But these people, they tend to tell you that not only can they communicate with the dead, hi there, but they can hear the dead as well, and they can relay this information back to the living. I wonder if that's true. I don't think so, because this subculture of people use exactly the same gimmicks that we magicians do, exactly the same physical methods, the same psychological methods. And they effectively and profoundly deceive millions of people around the earth to their detriment. They deceive these people, cost them a lot of money, cost them a lot of emotional anguish. I'm going to ask you to call up the ghost of my grandmother, because when she died, she had the family will, and she secreted it someplace. We don't know where it is. So we asked Granny, where is the will, Granny? What does Granny say? She says, I'm in heaven, and it's wonderful. I'm here with all my old friends, my deceased friends and my family, and all the puppy dogs and the kittens that I used to have when I was a little girl. And I love you, and I'll always be with you. Goodbye. And she didn't answer the damn question. Where is the will? Now, she could easily have said, oh, it's in the library on the second shelf behind the encyclopedia, but she doesn't say that. No, she doesn't. She doesn't bring any useful information to us. We paid a lot of money for that information, but we didn't get it. That's what this is. This is Calms Forte, 32 caplets of sleeping pills. I forgot to tell you that. I just ingested 6.5 days worth of sleeping pills. 6.5 days, that certainly is a fatal dose. It says right on the back here, in case of overdose, contact your poison control center immediately, and it gives an 800 number. Keep your seats, it's going to be okay. I don't really need it. Because I've been doing this stunt for audiences all over the world for the last 8 or 10 years, taking fatal doses of homeopathic sleeping pills. Why don't they affect me? The answer may surprise you. What is homeopathy? It's taking a medicine that really works and diluting it down well beyond Avogadro's limit, diluting it down to the point where there's none of it left. Now, folks, this is not just a metaphor I'm going to give you now. It's true. It's exactly equivalent to taking one 325 milligram aspirin tablet, throwing it into the middle of Lake Tahoe, and then stirring it up, obviously with a very big stick, and waiting 2 years or so until the solution is homogeneous. Then when you get a headache, you take a sip of this water, and voila, it is gone. Now, that is true. That is what homeopathy is all about. And another claim that they make, you'll love this one, the more dilute the medicine is, they say, the more powerful it is. Now, wait a minute. We heard about a guy in Florida, the poor man. He was on homeopathic medicine. He died of an overdose. He forgot to take his pill. Work on it. Work on it. It's a ridiculous thing.
How do you get the London Symphony Orchestra to do your stuff?
You pay them.
Yeah. But isn't this a really prestigious organization?
Of course. So you pay them a lot of money.
Yeah.
Against the resolution, singer, songwriter, one of the more unorthodox performers of rock and roll, and the father of 4 children, Frank Zappa.
Frogwash, I say. Censorship is bad for you, and sex is good for you.
We'll have more from our debaters in just a few moments.
I'm a person who likes to do what he wants to do and has worked at it for 20 years and can generally do what he wants to do, whether people like it or not. And what I do is designed for people who like it, not for people who don't.
It's not important to even be remembered. I mean, the people who worry about being remembered are guys like Reagan, Bush. These people want to be remembered. And they'll spend a lot of money and do a lot of work to make sure that remembrance is just terrific.
And for Frank Zappa?
I don't care.